comes from the old Greek word to move through or beyond. When we step through our ideas and concepts of fear, it becomes an enlivening force. I realize I'm saying fear, and some of you are probably thinking, well, maybe I don't have any fears. Skydiving, that kind of stuff. But how about simple fears? How about telling our loved ones that we love them? Or our co-workers or friends how we really feel about them? One of the funny things I found with fear is that when we have the opportunity of feeling it, that's a blessing. The problem is, the way we live our lives, a lot of the time, the fears are camouflaged in these stories. I'm not good enough. Maybe later. That's just not me. But here's the good one. I'm waiting for the right time. What if all of these are just layers to hide us from the fear? And I invite you to begin to ask the question, what would happen if you were to begin stepping into that space a little bit more? So I came to Australia as a refugee around the age of 5, so it's about this big. I was extremely shy. I was extremely quiet. I used to stutter when I spoke. And funnily, stuff in my native tongue, I still do. So communicating was really hard for me, especially landing in a country where I didn't know the language or the culture. The most common question that people asked me was, well, they didn't even ask me. They would ask the friend I'd usually have standing next to me, does he ever speak? Now, I wasn't intellectually stupid, but the words would just not come out of me. It was a terrifying idea to even begin to talk and then to face the judgment of like, oh my God, I'm special or something's not right with me. I remember in about grade 4, we had this thing with the teachers called reading time. And the whole class would open up the book they're reading and they'd all read through it. And me and 2 other children were invited to come into the special room, which was this tiny room on the side. And in that room, they would play, you guys remember cassette tapes? Showing my age. They would play a cassette tape for us and give us a copy of the book that was exceptionally big with really big font. And we would listen to the cassette tape and follow along in our books. I sat through about a term of this. Towards the end of the term, they're like, okay, they've had enough practice, let's give them a chance to read. And when it came to my turn to read and I opened up the book, I was excited. I was like, yes, I can finally show them that I can read. And I read through that thing without a problem. And I remember looking up and seeing the 2 teachers' aides looking at each other in absolute shock. In that moment, they realized they'd kept me in that class. And not at the time, but now, like 10, 15, 20 years later, I realized that I kept myself in that class. I could read perfectly well, but I was too afraid to say it. Have any of you ever felt like you hid from who you really were because you were afraid of being judged? Because you were afraid of what might come up if you stood up for yourself? Maybe because you were afraid of something different. I lived the first 20 years of my life like that. Now, the interesting thing I discovered about fear is